My name is Emma Collins, and I turned 23 last Monday while working a grueling 12-hour shift at Valley General Hospital. I'd been a registered nurse for 18 months, and the blue Honda Civic in the staff parking lot was my greatest achievement, the first car I'd ever purchased entirely with my own money. During my lunch break, my phone buzzed with a text from my father. The message would shatter my world. "We sold your car for $9,000. Marcus needs his college deposit. Family comes first. Be grateful we raised you right." My hands trembled so violently, I nearly dropped my sandwich. They couldn't have. They wouldn't have. But they did. Growing up in the Collins household meant one unshakable rule. What my parents wanted always took priority. My father, David, worked as a bank manager and carried himself with an authority that extended far beyond his professional life. My mother, Linda, was a part-time secretary who wielded guilt like a master craftsman, turning every conversation into a lesson about family obligation and sacrifice. My younger brother Marcus, now 19, had always been the golden child. Every opportunity, every resource, every family decision centered around his needs and wants. When Marcus wanted a gaming setup, Dad worked overtime to provide it. When he needed tutoring, Mom rearranged everyone's schedules. But when I asked for anything, the response was always, "We'll see." Family code for absolutely not. "Emma, you're the oldest," became my childhood soundtrack. You need to set an example. You need to understand that sacrifices must be made for the family. Despite their constraints, I managed to complete nursing school, working multiple jobs to pay for what my parents claimed they couldn't afford to help with. My study partner Jessica often found me in the library at midnight after pulling 8-hour shifts at the local diner. "I don't know how you do it," she'd say, sliding me a much-needed coffee. The truth was, neither did I. But the promise of independence kept me going through every all-nighter and double shift. When I graduated and secured my position at Valley General with a starting salary that exceeded both my parents' incomes combined, their reaction was telling. "It's about time she started contributing more to this household," my father commented. No congratulations. No celebration. Just expectation. For 2 years, I lived at home, watching my paychecks disappear into the family emergency fund that somehow always aligned perfectly with Marcus's desires. New laptop for college? Emergency. Spring break trip? Educational necessity. Designer clothes? Investment in his future. The day I bought my Honda Civic was my first act of real rebellion. I'd been secretly saving money in an account they didn't know about, hiding cash from side shifts and overtime pay. When I drove the car home, my father's face darkened like an approaching storm. "You spend your money on this without consulting us?" he demanded, as if I'd committed an unforgivable sin. "I'm 22, Dad. I need reliable transportation for work," I replied, clutching the keys so tightly they left marks on my palm. My mother's approach was more insidious. "I thought we raised you to think of others before yourself. Marcus's college expenses are coming up, and now you've been selfish with money that could have helped the family." But this wasn't selfishness. This was freedom. For the first time, I could come and go without borrowing the family car or explaining my every movement. I could pick up extra shifts without coordinating rides. I could even begin to imagine having my own apartment someday. In the 8 months since purchasing my car, my parents' financial demands had intensified. My father had made several poor investment decisions, and his position at the bank had become unstable due to departmental restructuring. He confided these troubles to me while simultaneously expecting me to fund solutions. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under," he'd say whenever I questioned the increasing requests for money that we both knew would never be repaid. "When you have your own family, you'll realize that difficult decisions must be made." The irony that I was financing these difficult decisions while being told I couldn't understand them wasn't lost on me. As my birthday approached, I volunteered for a double shift at the hospital, partly for the overtime pay and mostly to avoid another disappointing family celebration where my achievements would be overshadowed by Marcus's latest accomplishments or my father's work stories. My real celebration would come that weekend when my friends had planned a small gathering. Jessica, now working as a pediatric nurse across town, had insisted on organizing it. "You deserve one day that's actually about you," she said. The concept felt foreign and uncomfortable. The morning of my birthday, I left for work before anyone was awake. No cards on the counter. No birthday messages. By noon, I'd convinced myself I didn't care. I was an adult. Birthdays were for children. Then my phone buzzed during lunch, and for one hopeful moment, I thought someone had remembered. Instead, I received the message that would finally break the chains of obligation that had bound me for 23 years. "We sold your car for $9,000. Marcus needs his college deposit. Family comes first. Be grateful we raised you right." I read it 3 times, my brain struggling to process the words. My car, legally owned, fully paid for with my own money, had been sold without my knowledge or consent. My fingers shook as I typed back. "You did what?" The response was immediate. "Don't be dramatic. We left your stuff from the car in your room. You can take the bus until you save for another one." The casual cruelty knocked the wind out of me. I sat in the hospital cafeteria, surrounded by chattering colleagues, while my world imploded. My car wasn't just transportation, it was my first step toward independence, tangible proof that I could build a life on my own terms. During my afternoon break, I called my father, hoping this was some terrible misunderstanding. "Dad, please tell me you didn't really sell my car." "Of course we did," he replied as casually as discussing the weather. "Marcus's deposit is due next week. The dealership offered a fair price. But it wasn't yours to sell." My voice rose, drawing concerned looks from passing staff. "The car is in my name. I paid for it." "Don't take that tone with me," he interrupted. "You're being selfish. Marcus needs his education. Family comes first, Emma. Always." "Put Mom on the phone," I demanded. My mother's voice was soft but cutting. "Honey, if you really loved us, you wouldn't make such a fuss. Marcus has his whole future ahead of him. You already have your degree and a good job. You can manage without a car for a while." In the background, I heard Marcus say, "Tell her to chill out. I need college more than she needs a car. She can take the bus like everyone else." The entitlement in his voice made my blood boil. These people, my family, saw me as nothing more than a resource to be exploited whenever convenient. "What dealership?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Peterson's on Oak Street," Dad replied.
"Why?"
"It's done, Emma. Move on." I hung up and immediately called the dealership. After explaining my situation to an increasingly uncomfortable manager named Tom, the truth emerged. My parents had indeed sold my car that morning, presenting what appeared to be my signature on the title. "Ma'am, I have the paperwork right here," Tom said hesitantly. "But looking at it now, maybe you should come down and bring some identification. Something doesn't seem right." The realization hit me like a physical blow. They had forged my signature. They had committed fraud. Somehow, I finished my shift, moving through patient care on autopilot while my personal life crumbled. The unfairness of it all kept hitting me in waves, that on my birthday, my own family had committed theft against me. As I changed out of my scrubs, Jessica noticed my red-rimmed eyes. "What happened?" When I explained, her expression shifted from concern to outrage. "That's not just wrong, Emma. That's illegal. You need to report this." "They're my family," I said weakly. "Family doesn't steal from you," Jessica replied firmly. "What are you going to do?" I hadn't thought that far ahead. My car, my stolen car, had been my transportation to and from work. "I can drive you home," offered Ryan, a paramedic who'd just finished his shift and overheard our conversation. "And I think you should call the police." The ride to my parents' house was quiet. When we pulled up, Ryan put the car in park but didn't unlock the doors. "You don't have to go in there," he said quietly. "You can stay with Jessica or find somewhere else tonight. Take time to figure this out." His kindness nearly broke me, but I shook my head. I need to face them. When I walked through the front door, my family was eating dinner as if nothing had happened. My belongings from the car, sunglasses, phone charger, emergency kit, had been dumped carelessly on my bed. "Finally home," Mom remarked without looking up. There's leftover pasta if you're hungry. The normalcy was surreal. I stood in the doorway, staring at these people who shared my DNA but seemed incapable of basic respect or empathy. How could you? I finally managed. Dad sighed dramatically. We've been through this, Emma. Marcus needed the deposit money. The decision is made. Be mature about it. Mature? I repeated incredulously. You stole my car. You forged my signature. We didn't steal anything, Mom interjected. We're family. Family shares resources when necessary. Did anyone ask if I had needs? I countered. Did anyone consider that I need transportation for the job that funds everyone else's priorities? Marcus rolled his eyes. Drama queen. Take the bus like I do. You take the bus because you wrecked your car, I snapped. A car that Mom and Dad bought for you. Dad's face darkened. That's enough. Under this roof, we make decisions as a family. No, I corrected. You make decisions for everyone without consultation. That's not family, that's tyranny. If you don't like how this family operates, he said coldly, there's the door. But don't expect to come crawling back when you realize how good you had it. It was the same threat he'd used throughout my life. For the first time, it didn't terrify me. Instead, I felt something unexpected. Relief. I'll be finding my own place, I said with surprising calm. And you'll be hearing from me about the car. What's that supposed to mean? Mom asked, uncertainty flickering across her face. It means what you did was illegal, I replied. And there are consequences for illegal actions. As I headed to my room, Dad called after me. We sacrificed everything for you, Emma. A little gratitude would be appropriate. The word gratitude echoed as I closed my bedroom door. They expected gratitude for theft, betrayal, and years of emotional manipulation. That night, I stared at the ceiling, surrounded by the few possessions I'd managed to accumulate despite their constant demands. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. You okay? Spare room is yours if you want it. The simple kindness made me cry. I'd spent so long in an environment where my feelings were dismissed that genuine concern felt foreign. Not really, I replied honestly. Not sure what to do next. Her response was immediate. Whatever you need. I'm here. The next morning, I faced the practical reality. I needed to get to work without transportation. The nearest bus stop was a mile away, requiring 2 transfers to reach the hospital. The commute would take nearly 2 hours each way. As I prepared to leave extra early, Mom appeared in the kitchen. I made you breakfast, she said, gesturing to pancakes on the table. The peace offering was transparent and inadequate. I don't have time, I replied, though I'd given myself extra time for the bus journey. I need to catch the bus. Guilt flickered across her face. Your father and I talked. We can drive you until you figure something out. The audacity was breathtaking. No, thank you. I'd rather take the bus. The walk to the bus stop gave me time to think. Each step felt like a small act of independence. By the time I reached the hospital, sweaty and nearly late despite my early departure, I was emotionally drained but oddly determined. During lunch, Jessica joined me in the cafeteria. You look terrible, she said bluntly. I feel terrible, I sighed. But also clearer somehow. Did you report the car theft? I shook my head. I don't know if I can do that to them. Jessica leaned forward seriously. Emma, if a stranger stole your car, would you report it? Of course. Then what they did was theft. The fact that their family makes it worse, not better. Her words resonated, but taking action felt impossible. Years of conditioning had taught me that their needs always came first. I'll think about it, I promised. That evening, Jessica picked me up from work and drove me to her apartment. Stay as long as you need, she insisted, showing me the spare room. No questions, no timeline. For the first time in memory, I was making choices based solely on my own well-being. My phone buzzed periodically with texts from Mom, ranging from concerned, "Are you coming home?" to manipulative, "Your father's stress levels are dangerous because of this situation." I turned it off without responding. The next day, I called in sick, something I'd never done before. My supervisor was understanding. Take the time you need, Emma. Alone in Jessica's apartment, I felt simultaneously lost and found. I had no car, no concrete plan, and most of my possessions were still at my parents' house. Yet I was free from their constant demands and manipulation. I was reaching for my phone to call Mom when it rang. An unknown number. Emma? This is Margaret Stevens from the hospital. Night shift supervisor in ICU. I knew Margaret by reputation, respected, no nonsense, experienced. Jessica mentioned you're dealing with some family difficulties. I went through something similar years ago. Mind if I share some perspective? Something in her tone made me open up. Before I knew it, I was pouring out the whole story. Margaret listened without interruption. When I finished, she said simply, "What you're describing isn't normal family dynamics, Emma. It's financial abuse." The word, abuse, hung between us. I'd thought it myself, but hearing someone else confirm it gave the assessment weight. "I don't know what to do," I admitted. "You start by recognizing you have rights," Margaret replied. "Then you enforce boundaries. Sometimes that means taking actions they'll call disloyal to protect yourself. Like reporting the car theft."
Exactly.
They're counting on your reluctance to hold them accountable. After we hung up, I sat at Jessica's kitchen table, Margaret's words replaying in my mind. For the first time, I wasn't just sad or confused. I was angry. Not helpless anger, but righteous anger that demanded action. The next morning became the first day of my new life. I made coffee and wrote what I called my independence plan. Secure my belongings, find housing, and get transportation. I texted Ryan, "Can you help me get my things tomorrow when they're at work?" His response was immediate. "Absolutely. What time?" Jessica emerged from her bedroom. "Planning the revolution?" "Something like that," I smiled. "I need to find an apartment I can afford." "Actually," Jessica said excitedly, "Sarah from pediatrics mentioned her roommate is moving out. Her place is 10 minutes from the hospital." Sarah was a pediatric nurse I knew casually. Warm, reliable, drama-free. The prospect of sharing space with someone like her was appealing. By afternoon, I had a potential living situation. Sarah had been enthusiastic about showing me the apartment that evening. My next call was harder. Michael Torres was a lawyer who'd represented Jessica in a landlord dispute. I explained my situation, admitting I couldn't afford significant legal fees. "Let's start with a consultation," Michael suggested. "We'll figure out payment later." Meeting with Michael that afternoon, I learned several crucial things. What my parents had done was unequivocally illegal. I had multiple legal options, and I needed to document everything. "Keep records of all communications," Michael advised. "Don't delete anything they've sent, especially admissions about taking the car." That evening, Sarah showed me her apartment, a modest 2-bedroom with good light and reasonable rent. "House rules are simple," she explained. "Clean up after yourself, no loud music after 10, and contribute to the emergency chocolate stash." I found myself laughing genuinely for the first time in days. I can definitely contribute to emergency chocolate. I signed a rental agreement starting the following week. The security deposit took most of my savings, but it was worth the peace of mind. That night, my phone rang, my parents' number. After hesitating, I answered, recording the call as Michael had advised. "Emma." Dad's voice was artificially warm. "When are you coming home? Your mother is worried." "I'm not coming home," I replied, surprised by my steadiness. "I found my own place." A brief silence, then his tone turned cold. "Don't be ridiculous. You can't afford your own place. Come home, and we'll forget this childish tantrum." "It's not a tantrum, Dad. You stole my car. You forged my signature. Those are crimes." "We did what was necessary for family," he insisted. "I don't owe you the right to steal from me," I stated firmly. "I'm an adult. My property is mine. So, what are you saying?" His voice took on the dangerous quiet that had intimidated me throughout childhood. "Are you threatening your own parents?" "I'm informing you that I'll be coming tomorrow at 2 p.m. to collect my belongings. Ryan will be with me. If you walk out like this," Dad warned, "don't expect any support from us ever again." The threat that had controlled me for years now seemed almost laughable. "I understand."
Goodbye.
After ending the call, adrenaline coursed through me. I had stood my ground. I had set boundaries. The real test would come tomorrow. I created a group chat with Ryan, Jessica, Margaret, and Sarah, explaining my plan to retrieve my belongings. Their responses flooded in immediately, offers of help, support, encouragement. Staring at the screen, I felt overwhelmed with gratitude. This was what genuine support looked like, people offering help without expecting anything in return. The next morning, I called the police non-emergency line to request an officer present while I retrieved my belongings. The dispatcher assured me someone would meet us at the house. Ryan picked me up in his truck, with Jessica and Margaret following in Margaret's car. "Ready?" Ryan asked. "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, clutching a folder containing the formal demand letter Michael had prepared. Officer Martinez was already waiting when we arrived. After explaining the situation, he assured me he'd keep the peace while I gathered my belongings. Surprisingly, the house appeared empty. Using my key, I led our group inside, half expecting to find my room emptied. Instead, everything was untouched. "Let's work quickly," Margaret suggested. "Essentials first." We formed an efficient team, me packing, the others carrying boxes. Within an hour, we'd packed most of my clothing, professional materials, electronics, and sentimental items. As we loaded the final boxes, the front door opened. Mom entered first, stopping short at the sight of strangers and a police officer in her house. Dad followed, his expression darkening. "What is this?" he demanded, ignoring Officer Martinez. "Who are these people?" "I told you I was coming for my things," I replied calmly. "These are my friends helping me move." "You didn't mention police," Mom said, her voice trembling. "Officer Martinez is here to ensure this goes smoothly," I explained. Officer Martinez intercepted Dad when he stepped forward. "Sir, I'm here to keep the peace while your daughter retrieves her belongings. Please let her complete this process." When the last box was loaded, I approached the kitchen where my parents had retreated. Ryan positioned himself in the doorway for support. "I'm leaving now," I announced. "But first, I want to address my car." Dad scoffed. "There's nothing to address. You had no legal right to sell my vehicle," I continued. "It was registered in my name only. You forged my signature, which is a felony." "We are your parents," Mom hissed. "Everything we've done has been for this family. Selling my car wasn't for me," I countered. "It was for Marcus, who's never been expected to support himself like I have." Marcus appeared in the doorway, looking confused and annoyed. "What's going on?" "I'm moving out," I told him simply, and addressing the fact that Mom and Dad illegally sold my car for your college deposit. His expression shifted to defensive anger. "They said you agreed to help. Don't blame me because you changed your mind." "I never agreed to anything," I replied. "They stole my car, Marcus. They committed fraud." "That's ridiculous," Dad interjected. "We don't steal from you." I removed the demand letter from my folder and placed it on the counter. "My lawyer disagrees. This formal demand requires compensation of $12,000, the full value of my vehicle, not the $9,000 you accepted. You have 30 days to pay, or I'll pursue both civil and criminal charges." The silence was absolute. Dad stared at the document while Mom's face drained of color. "You wouldn't dare," Dad whispered. "I'd prefer not to," I acknowledged. "I'd prefer you simply acknowledge what you did was wrong and make restitution. But I will pursue legal action if necessary." "After everything we've done for you," Mom began, tears welling. "How can you threaten us like this?" "That was your obligation as parents," I interrupted. "It doesn't give you the right to steal from me as an adult." Dad's face contorted with rage. "Get out of my house. If you pursue this, you're no longer part of this family. You'll be dead to us." The threat hung between us. In the past, it would have devastated me. Now, it simply confirmed what I already knew. Their love had always been conditional on my compliance. "I understand," I said quietly. "The choice is yours." As I turned to leave, Marcus called out, "Haley, wait." He approached with something in his hand, my childhood stuffed elephant that I'd overlooked. "You should take him," he said, pressing the worn toy into my hands. And, I'm sorry about your car. I didn't know they didn't ask you. The unexpected kindness brought tears to my eyes. Thank you, Marcus. Outside, my friends waited by the vehicles. Everything okay? Jessica asked. No, I admitted. But it will be. As we drove away, I watched my childhood home recede in the mirror. Dad stood on the front step, still shouting something I could no longer hear. Mom stood beside him, one hand covering her face. You did it, Ryan said beside me. You stood your ground. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. The confrontation had been as difficult as I'd feared, but also strangely liberating. For the first time, I had spoken my truth without minimizing it to protect others' feelings. The following week passed in a blur of settling into my new room with Sarah. Every item I placed represented a choice that was entirely mine. How does it feel? Sarah asked one evening, watching me arrange books on my shelf. Strange, I admitted. Good strange, but still strange. I keep expecting someone to tell me I've done something wrong. She nodded understandingly. Independence takes getting used to. Wait until you have your first minor household crisis and realize you can handle it yourself. 1 week after delivering the demand letter, I received my parents' response, a formal rejection from their attorney. They've hired someone, Michael informed me, which actually works in our favor. They wouldn't hire a lawyer if they didn't believe they were legally vulnerable. I filed a police report documenting the theft and forgery, providing text messages where Dad explicitly admitted selling my car. The dealership cooperated fully, providing sales documents with a forged signature. We have a solid case, Michael assured me. The question is how far you want to push this. It was a question I wrestled with daily. Despite everything, these were still my parents. The thought of them facing criminal charges created conflicting emotions. In the end, my decision came not from anger, but from clarity. They needed to experience consequences to understand their behavior was unacceptable. 2 weeks after moving out, I filed formal charges. The detective assigned to my case took my statement with professional detachment. Family cases are complicated, she acknowledged. But the law is clear. You can't sell someone else's vehicle without consent, regardless of relationship. The fallout was swift. My parents received notices to appear for questioning. Extended family began taking sides, most supporting my parents' narrative of an ungrateful daughter, but a few reaching out after hearing my version. My Aunt Patricia called, unexpectedly. I always wondered when you'd finally stand up to them, she said without preamble. I've watched how they've treated you for years. There's nothing normal about expecting your adult daughter to finance the family while taking away her independence. Her validation brought tears to my eyes. I thought I was crazy sometimes. You're not crazy, Emma. You're brave. Not all reactions were supportive. Some relatives left angry voicemails. Cousins unfriended me on social media. Even my grandmother expressed disappointment in involving outsiders in family matters. The most unexpected development came from Marcus. 3 weeks after I moved out, he texted asking to meet for coffee. We met at a cafe downtown. At 19, Marcus still carried the softness of adolescence, but his eyes held new awareness. It's weird at home, he began. Dad's angry constantly. Mom cries a lot. They started expecting me to take over your role, work part-time while maintaining perfect grades. Dad took control of my savings account for safekeeping. The realization that they hadn't learned from my departure, but simply found a new target made my stomach churn. Marcus, that's not right. Your money is yours. I know that now, he said with determined resolve. I've been talking to Aunt Patricia about opening a new account. Pride swelled in my chest. That's smart. And if you need help, you'd really help me? After everything? Of course. You're my brother. What happened with Mom and Dad doesn't change that. Tears welled in his eyes. I thought I should hate you for what you're doing to the family. But I think you might be saving me from going through what you did. We parted with a hug and promises to stay in touch. That connection, honest, equal, free from manipulation, felt like the first healthy family relationship I'd ever experienced. Meanwhile, consequences continued unfolding. The district attorney decided to pursue forgery charges, but was willing to negotiate on theft if restitution was made. Your parents are facing serious consequences, Michael explained. They're motivated to settle. A settlement offer arrived the following week, $11,000 compensation with the stipulation that I drop criminal charges. It's less than full value, but more than they got from selling it, Michael said. What outcome are you looking for? I considered carefully. What did I want? I want them to understand they can't treat people this way. But I don't necessarily want them in jail. After negotiation, we reached an agreement. Full restitution of $12,000, a written apology acknowledging wrongdoing, and my parents' agreement to attend financial counseling. In exchange, I wouldn't pursue criminal charges. The check arrived by certified mail 3 days later, accompanied by a terse apology clearly drafted by their attorney. It wasn't the heartfelt reconciliation part of me had hoped for, but it was accountability, perhaps the first real accountability they'd ever faced. With the settlement money, I purchased a used Toyota Camry, registration, and insurance in my name only. Driving it off the lot, I felt profound reclamation, not just of transportation, but of agency over my own life. My professional life flourished amid these changes. Freed from constant financial drain, I could focus fully on my nursing career. When a senior position opened in the trauma unit, my supervisor encouraged me to apply. You've shown exceptional judgment under pressure, she noted during my interview. Recent events have demonstrated that clearly. I got the position, which came with substantial pay increase and better hours. The irony wasn't lost on me. By prioritizing my own well-being, I'd actually improved my prospects rather than undermining them as my parents had always implied. 3 months after moving out, I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot after my shift, reflecting on my transformation. My phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. Dinner tonight to celebrate 3 months of freedom? I smiled as I typed back. Absolutely. My treat this time. As I drove toward the restaurant, I realized the settlement money and promotion were only tangible results. The true victory was internal, learning to value my own needs, set boundaries, and recognize that genuine love doesn't demand sacrifice of basic rights and dignity. My radio played softly as I navigated familiar streets, no longer feeling like an imposter in my own life. The road ahead was uncharted territory, but it was undeniably, authentically mine. 6 months later, Marcus moved in with Aunt Patricia to finish his senior year of high school in a healthier environment. We had dinner together weekly, building the sibling relationship we'd never been allowed to have under our parents' roof. I never returned to my childhood home. My parents and I maintained no contact beyond the legal proceedings. Sometimes I felt sadness about the family relationships that might have been, but never regret about the choices I'd made. On my 24th birthday, I celebrated with friends who remembered without being reminded, who gave gifts without expecting anything in return, and who toasted my accomplishments without redirecting attention to their own achievements. That night, I looked around the table at these people who had become my chosen family, Jessica, Ryan, Margaret, Sarah, and Marcus, and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. Not the obligated gratitude my parents had always demanded, but genuine appreciation for authentic love and support. I had lost the family I was born into, but gained something infinitely more valuable, the family I chose, and most importantly, myself. The little girl who had been taught that her needs didn't matter, that her voice didn't count, that her dreams were less important than everyone else's comfort, no longer existed. In her place stood a woman who knew her own worth, who could set boundaries without guilt, and who understood that real love never requires you to sacrifice your fundamental dignity. My parents had given me an unexpected gift that day they sold my car. They had finally pushed me far enough to discover my own strength. And for that, despite everything, I was genuinely grateful.